sometimes we can go looking for struggle when struggle isn't really going to be helpful. I mean, let's face it, how often is struggle really helpful? Hard work, perhaps, but not necessarily struggle. These are hallmarks of people who have Ketu, the south node, in the sixth house of the horoscope, and Rahu, the north node, in the 12th house of the horoscope. And that's what we're going to jump into talking about today. But before we do, if you enjoy my videos and you'd like to be notified every time I have a new one up, please subscribe below and tick the notification bell so that you get a notification every time there's a new video up. Also, if you're interested in knowing about previous lifetimes, knowing about your own karmic patterns, knowing about your own nodal placements, I do recommend scheduling in my karmic story consultation, which is on special offer for the holidays. You can schedule that at the link above. So before we dive into talking about Ketu in the sixth and Rahu in the 12th, it's perhaps good to understand how Ketu and Rahu function in the horoscope. Quite often, newcomers to Vedic astrology understand Ketu as being connected to the concept of liberation. But they don't really get the full picture about Ketu and how it works to liberate us, right? And most people understand Rahu being connected to what we're meant to work on in this particular lifetime in order to bring balance to the horoscope. And Rahu does represent that too, but ideally, we really need a good balance between both of the nodes in the horoscope. So what is Ketu? K2 is like your natural operating system in terms of how you approach life. It's what you default to on a certain level over and over again. We can call it the security paradigm. It's that thing that you kind of cling to, A, because you either just don't know any better, B, because you actually think that it's going to make things different. Sometimes it does. Very seldom does it work in most instances. And in addition to that, it's just sometimes, our natural default. But I think I said that already. So how do Ketu and Rahu work together? Ketu has somewhat of a suppressing quality to it, right? So how does that work? Well, quite often we tend to cling on to things just because, well, like I said, we don't know any better. So after a while, a sense of dissatisfaction begins to grow with the, approaches that we've adopted to life, either through discovering that they don't work or they tend to feel mundane or repetitive, or we just need some freshness in our life. At those particular times, we begin to feel the pull of Rahu. Rahu causes us to go and explore unknown territory, those different approaches to life that, may actually offer, at the very least, growth and evolution, right? And that's the whole thing. Rahu doesn't always bring the solution. It brings the growth and quite often the opportunities that help us to learn a little bit more about what we're needing to integrate in order to expand and get more satisfaction out of life. Not always the answer or the solution, but the opportunities for growth that help us to learn what's going to bring us more satisfaction. So once we've been exploring the path of Rahu for a while, which can be really confusing because it's unknown territory, well, after a while, that gets exhausting for us. Ask anybody who's been through a Rahu period, right? They'll tell you most exhausting period of my life. And it's because most of the time people try to resist Rahu. If you go along for the ride, it becomes a whole lot easier. So, but in either case, it tends to become a little bit exhausting following that path. So that's when we need Ketu. That's when we need that sense of the familiar. That's when we need that thing that we've done before so that we can retreat to that particular space and integrate all the experiences we went through with the Rahu side of the axis. And once we integrate those experiences, that's where the growth happens. Plain and simple, right? But, that's a good working understanding of how Ketu and Rahu work. Now let's jump into talking about Ketu in the sixth house and Rahu in the 12th. When life is difficult, when life entails struggle, we begin to become accustomed to that, right? We begin to kind of think that, okay, this is always going to be a struggle. Life is always going to bring me hardship in this particular area. So what happens? We quite often then begin to approach life with the sense of, I have to struggle in every single thing that I do. Here's another way that Ketu in the sixth house works. Uh, in general, we tend to think that hard work returns rewards. And there is a saying that goes, hard work is its own reward. And that's a very meaningful statement for people who have Ketu in the sixth house. They need to understand that the whole experience of life and putting service in to one's path is its own reward. But quite often we think, I want this. And so we go, in order to attain this thing, whether that be a relationship, whether that be that nice job or that posh house or whatever the case may be, we think, I have to work hard, and through hard work, I will attain that. Because quite often we've had an experience where working hard was actually connected to the experience of attaining that result. So in our minds, we go, duh, I just work hard and I get a reward. I do this and God gives me a banana. I do this and the universe drops cookies and manna from heaven into my lap. I got news for you. It's all an illusion that's created in your noggin. That little thing up here. Well, maybe it's a bigger thing up here. Maybe it's just an ordinary size thing, but that's beside the point. Okay, it's an illusion, right? There was a psychiatrist, psychologist, I'm not sure which, but a scientist as well. And he did a really mean test on dogs. His name was Pavlov. And what he did was he would ring a bell and feed the dog. And over time, he began to separate the period of time between ringing the bell and feeding the dog so that eventually he rang the bell and the dog just strolled because the dog was waiting for that food to come along. Well, K2 in the sixth house kind of works in that way. We tend to think that if I work hard, that's going to bring me what I'm looking for. So I just have to work hard in life and I'll get everything that I desire. And you'll probably also get a whole lot of struggle if you have any luck getting the thing that you desire. And aside from that, most people who have this particular placement in their horoscope come to learn that you don't always get that thing that you're striving for, even from hard work. So, what happens when that particular scenario arises? They work harder and harder and harder. And then over time, what begins to happen is they develop an attachment, an even deeper mental attachment to the outcome of their actions. They start getting frustrated in their mind. They start thinking of different ways to be able to accomplish it, and then get more frustrated when they don't get the results that they were somehow expecting, right? And they become even more exhausted than they would if they were just working hard for the sake of working hard itself. And so then usually with these people, what tends to occur is they then give up. I just have to escape, right? I'm exhausted. This isn't working. I'm tired. I'm just going to give up on it all. That's Rahu in the 12th house. That's the escapism tendency. That's an unhealthy approach to Rahu in the 12th. So the person goes, I just have to surrender and give up. And if I do that, then I'll get those things that I want. It doesn't work that way. But they give up anyway. And what tends to happen usually is they find that life begins to become filled with tons and tons and tons of stress built up by those things that they're ignoring that they really should be doing, the hard work that's necessary for the sake of daily existence, but that they think, oh, if I just kind of let go and give up, it'll all go away. Well, it doesn't. It's still there. And so then, on a certain level, it begins to confirm to them that, well, life is just about struggle. No, it's not about struggle. What it's actually trying to teach you is that you are attached to the outcome of your actions. Um, Sometimes we have to do things that are hard and that are difficult with no reward other than learning lessons along the way. Basically, Ketu in the sixth and Rahu in the 12th is the path of the karma yogi. Karma yoga is the tendency to let go of any attachment to the fruits of your actions. It's just doing things sheerly for the sake of the act of doing it, right? So, in other words, if you are going, I want to attain like a nicer house or a better living situation for my family. You can work hard and then get frustrated when things don't happen quickly, or you can go, you know what? I'm just going to continue to do this. This is what I know to be right. I'm going to let go of the attachment that this is somehow going to create that. And I'm just going to consider my work a service because the sixth house is also service. And quite often, in life when we feel that we're in a path of subservience. In other words, putting tons and tons and tons of energy in and getting nothing back, rather than being a slave, the best thing to do is to serve, right? So K2 in the sixth house teaches us how to serve, how to consider everything that we're doing in life as service, as on a certain level, paying off our karmic debt. And paying off karmic debt doesn't mean you've been bad and you're somehow being punished. It means you're learning. You're going through the learning experiences. You're putting in the work that's going to give you the lesson. And there we go back to that concept of hard work as its own reward because it brings learning, it brings evolution, and it brings growth, and it eventually brings liberation. But we just have to do it because it's the right thing to do, right? So for those people who are approaching life with a sense of struggle, the way to do it is to go, you know what? I could still work for this outcome, right? They're still having a degree of attachment when doing that, but that's pretty natural. I can still work for this outcome without all this mental struggle. I can just do it because, I know that doing it brings the growth or the movement, right? And that's how one begins to become liberated from the concept of hard work returns reward. And you don't go so far in the other direction that you're running away from the world and hiding and like retreating, hoping that somehow everything is just going to fall into your lap because it's not going to work that way. No, you can continue to work for it. Quite often, it will even come of its own accord. It's not because you did it. The attachment happens because the person thinks that their hard work is what brought that thing into their existence, when in reality, it was just a part of their path, right? It was just in their path that they should put the energy and the effort in, and the thing that they wanted would naturally come to them. But it doesn't always follow that the hard work brings the reward. K2 in the 6th and Rahu in the 12th is one of the most confusing placements in the horoscope because we're taught by the material world and by our bosses that hard work should, return reward, but it doesn't. Here's an interesting thing to add. Sometimes you'll find people who have Ketu in the 6th and Rahu in the 12th will have an attachment to their pets, right? Sorry, I hit my desk. They'll have an attachment to their pets because pets are a sixth house related thing. And Rahu in the 12th is trying to teach them that it's okay to be alone. It's okay to have solitude. right? Sometimes people who have Ketu in the sixth are afraid to be alone, but they find that interaction with other people is something that creates a lot of stress for them. And so then at that time, they want to escape, but then they find that something about the material world is needed, right? Whether it be that I need more friends in my life, even though I have a harder time around people. And so they will tend to go back into that space that makes them think that they always have to have stress and, yes, sometimes conflict, because that's a sixth house thing too, rather than understanding that it's okay to spend time in solitude. It's okay to be alone. It's okay to have a balance between the tension of the world and the space of solitude. And ideally, the balance between those two placements in that particular concept is the in-between space where you're able to be within the world and the world's struggles, but not attached to the world or the world's struggles. If you have Ketu in the 6th and Rahu in the 12th, or if you'd like to know the placements of the nodes in your own horoscope, once again, I do offer something called the Karmic Story Consultation. It's on sale through the holidays for only $108. You can schedule that at the link that you'll find above. I also have, for those people on your shopping list who are astrology enthusiasts or seekers, I offer gift certificates or gift cards for the holidays. If you're interested in getting one of those for someone, you can do that at the following link. That's going to do it for this look at Ketu in the 6th and Rahu in the 12th. Until next time, happy holidays, and please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.